Good morning, everyone. Virgo here. It is June 14th, 2019. Happy Friday to everyone. And I wanted to end out the week this week with, first of all, letting you guys know that at some point this weekend I will be uploading the third part of the Global Sovereign Citizen Handbook. I cannot promise you that it will be before Sunday because I have a bunch of things going on this weekend, but I will get another section of the Global Sovereign Citizen Handbook up for you guys over the weekend. Now, having said that, today's video is going to be about how the sovereign/patriot movement and ideology works. And it's kind of taking us back to the Sovereign Ideology 101. And for those of you that are already fairly aware of this, it's a good refresher. But for people who do not completely understand where these people are coming from, this is something that will help them to at least understand. This is what has been happening. So for those of you that don't realize how this movement continues to grow and how it is that people are getting confused at what they're seeing, even though they don't believe what they're seeing is accurate, they don't understand why these people believe what they do and why so many people they get into conversations with, and all of a sudden they're getting screamed at and they don't know why. So inadvertently, I end up getting emails every once in a while, and the one that I received at the beginning of the week that I haven't had a chance to address yet was particularly disturbing to me, because what was explained to me was that this person started asking questions after rolling into a video that was showing them basically the ideology that we discuss on a daily basis on this channel. And of course, this had to do with the redemption theory, and it had to do with, the claim that there were judges out there that confirm these things. And of course, Bruce Doucette's name was brought up, and, they just had no idea what these people were talking about. They started asking questions in the comment section and got bombarded with just absolute hate, where this person could have maybe better understood the position that these individuals believe in if someone had taken the time to explain. These individuals are so trigger happy at this point that anybody that starts asking too many questions gets snapped at, apparently. This is not the first email that I've gotten like this. So I'm going to address this today so that people who don't really understand just the very basics of it, basics of the ideology, can refer to this video and share it with others and kind of give them just a brief overview of what these individuals believe in, why they believe in it, where they have gone wrong in terms of their belief with it from a legal standpoint, and what it is that they're trying to accomplish with it. And for those of you that actually have this belief system, let me tell you, one of the things that you are doing to others that are trying to understand your point of view is if they choose to ask questions instead of just flat out believing with blind faith what it is that you're saying, you jump down their throats. And when that happens, you end up having people run from you and not understand what it is that you're trying to say, which it doesn't surprise me, because when someone asks too many questions of these individuals, they start running out of answers. So for those of you that have been snapped at, that would be the reason why. And especially if you are someone who is capable of kind of stringing the chain together and recognizing that maybe there's some things that are off legally on this that you need to check on, believe me, you're gonna get snapped at if you choose to do your own research and it doesn't go along the lines of researching another website or something of that manner that would prove their theory to be accurate. They're very sensitive to the idea that they might be proven wrong. And this is one of the things that people who fall into it find very difficult. Well, this is how we find it very difficult to get people out of this ideology, even though it's inaccurate in most places. It's because people have a resistance to admitting that they're incorrect. And when they start doing research, they try to find things that coincide with what their beliefs are versus what an actual scientist does when they're trying to determine if something is factual or not, and that is trying to debunk. So it's human nature to try to find things that align with what your personal beliefs are, but you have to fight that when you're dealing with something that you just don't know for certain whether it's real or not. If you want to live in reality, then you've got to be able to try to debunk it, because this is something that is out far in left field, and as we're finding out, people don't really understand. And if you try to go to a group like what I was talking about here, you're going to get jumped on if you ask too many questions, because quite frankly, there's a lot of answers, especially if you're someone who's highly educated, especially in the area of law, that they don't have. And as a result, they will try to pretend like they have them. And unfortunately, that leaves them in a bad situation. So a lot of times, it's just easier for them to just make you want to go away. So basically what we're dealing with, I'm going to give you kind of just a hypothetical scenario that gives you a good idea of what you're dealing with. So imagine that your life is like a video game, and the enemy you're trying to defeat is the government. So the government throws lots of obstacles at you, like restrictive taxes and laws. Most people must deal with these obstacles as part of getting through the game and avoiding any kind of penalties. But not you. You can skip right over these obstacles because you know the cheat codes, okay? Special maneuvers and magic words that not only get you out of paying your taxes, but also will keep you out of jail and maybe even get you a windfall of cash that the government's been hiding out from you since you were born. All you have to do is sign your name a certain way, say the right words in court, and file certain pieces of paperwork, and you'll win the game and live your life free and wealthy and as a sovereign. Okay? I want you to keep that in mind, because this scenario gives you the worldview of this particular movement and ideology. So, members of this movement believe that anyone can avoid various unpleasant aspects of life by using special legal loopholes, we'll call them that. So they use these loopholes to attempt to dodge taxes, to attempt to avoid jail time when there's been a law that's been broken, even something as simple as a traffic law. And they'll use them when someone disagrees with them, for example. They will also use them at times when normal people would feel it would be important to get a criminal attorney, for example. But then they'll realize that, oh, well, I can just do this myself better because this is what the ideology tells me, that attorneys are bad people because they are basically government owned, or they are owned by the crown, quote unquote, or they're owned by the bar. And then there's all of these other conspiracy theories about the bar, when in reality, being a bar member is just a membership. Every single state licenses their attorneys. If you do not have a license because you have not attended law school, you are now practicing law without a license, which is illegal in every single state. But I digress because I don't want to go too far into that. I'm just trying to give you kind of an idea of how you're LARPing here, meaning how you are going about playing your video game, and how the different cheat codes, for example, that you would have. Okay, so the movement claims, or the ideology claims, seem like a wild tangle of complex legal theories, really, but they all boil down to one simple concept, and that is that they believe that they're not subject to the laws or authority of the federal government, but only to common law, or what others call constitutional law. The law of the original and rightful U.S. Republic before the 14th Amendment, which addresses U.S. citizenship rights and the validity of the U.S. government public debt, was ratified. This means they believe that they don't have to pay taxes and aren't subject to any court rulings, aren't subject to any arrests, fines, or any other duty or penalty imposed by the government. Okay? So the movement claims that there's a difference also between a human being and a separate legal entity represented by that person's birth certificate or their legal name. So to them, a government statute is a contract between the government and the legal entity, which they refer to as the straw man. Therefore, the human, which would be, the flesh and blood person, not the straw man, is not subject to those statutes. Sovereigns are cautious of creating what they call joinder between their human self and their straw man, which might happen because they register for a government service, accept a bill, or accidentally sign their name the way that it appears in legal documents and tax paperwork. So someone by the name of Debbie Smith, for example, might only refer to herself as Debbie of the family Smith. Or she might sign her name in an unusual way, like Debbie ... Smith. And many believe that the county sheriffs are actually the highest authority legally that are allowed in the United States, and that state and federal police are actually illegitimate. They deny the authority of the U.S. federal government, or even the lawfulness of its existence. Another common claim of the movement or the ideology is that they are not citizens of the United States or whatever nation they reside in, because this is going crazy all over all countries, but rather are separate, independent, sovereign nations, citizens of such a nation or citizens of a state or province. Some sovereign citizens claim to be citizens of a religious nation, subject only to the authority of God, for example. If you guys think back not long ago, there was a man that was sitting in prison that was just barking out sovereign ideology like crazy. And he had actually killed 2 people, a black lady police officer and his pregnant girlfriend. And he stood up in court and proclaimed to the judge, "You are not my judge. My only judge is God. And therefore, you have no authority over me." So the redemption movement is an offshoot of the sovereign ideology. But it's become much bigger, much, much bigger than it ever has been before. Largely because of social media, and because of the availability of scam artists to get a hold of this information. According to adherents of this movement, the U.S. government issues everyone a birth certificate when they're born, creating the straw man legal entity that represents them. But furthermore, the movement claims that the government creates a bank account for each straw man and stocks it with $630,000 at least for each person. It's possible that those in the movement feel that these funds are to pay debts, especially tax debts, for example, by filing a bunch of documents and signing drafts, which basically means writing checks, drawing on a mysterious, unproven $630,000 account. Now, $630,000, that number came from Roger Elvick many, many years ago, 25 to 30, maybe even longer ago. If you look on social media now, they're talking in the millions, and they'll even go as far as to falsely try to prove to you that these accounts exist by doing things like taking you to the Treasury Direct calculator, which does nothing except for add interest. It's an amortization calculator that you would find if you were purchasing a house and you wanted to know a basic amount of what your interest would be over a 30-year period. It doesn't do anything different than that. But, a lot of people that are not savvy with finance don't realize that that's what they're looking at. And as a result, they start pulling up all kinds of crazy stuff and claiming that all of these things are traded on the stock market. And you have a bunch of accounts that the government's holding in your name. That's just one. Now, there's another that claims that GMEI, which is a group that holds LEI numbers for out of the country corporations that trade worldwide, that are legally allowed to trade worldwide. That's all it means. All it is an indexing platform that you can actually look up and find out whether a company is legally allowed to trade in all nations, or are they just allowed to trade in certain nations. These people are what hold that information, but it's indexed. So therefore, if you put in 54321, it's going to pull up everything that has those numbers in it, because it's not even in the right format or anything else. But then the con artist or the guru, whatever you'd like to call them, will point at the screen on the video and tell you, see all these companies? All those companies are trading stock with your birth certificate. So it's really a very insidious, nasty little thing that's going on. There are some gurus that will claim that you can use your secret accounts by beating out the ACH system. So, for example, they will suggest that you go to Amazon, and if you just put in the information at the right time frame, like right before the batch goes out, of ACH checks that would be deposited, and you demand for them to ship immediately and to ship overnight, then obviously it ships before you get caught. And as long as you have a good check writing history, you will not have a problem. They'll just come back after you later. But this is supposedly proof that the crazy accounts exist. The truth is that there are no secret accounts. It's been researched to death over the last 30 years, ever since it was come up with. The grandfathers of the redemption theory, there's 3 or 4 of them, Roger Elvick probably being the most famous. No one's ever been able to prove that they exist. No one's ever been able to actually pull from them. And the truth is that this is a really sad scenario, because there are gurus that are out there right now that are teaching people to commit fraud. And there are gurus that are out there right now that are teaching people to go and order checks with fake information on them. And basically all that they're doing is check kiting, digitally check kiting. And the other thing that they're doing is they're having people they're setting people up to fraud, to be busted for bank fraud. And then you're also dealing with mail fraud when you're talking about companies like Amazon. Well, they're shipping you these things. Next, we have the scenario of presentments. So people like April Lejeune, for example, were selling packages where you could get involved with supposedly correcting your status, meaning that the 14th Amendment only allowed supposedly certain individuals to own land and so on and so forth, and everybody else is just basically shit out of luck. correcting your status, meaning that you needed to be a private citizen versus being a public citizen. And it's actually totally a bunch of garbage. There are those two definitions, but the truth is that the meanings are very simple. A private citizen is everyone. A public citizen is if you go and you run for office, for example. That is really the only real difference, but they claim that being a private citizen and a public citizen are two different things. It's kind of the same thing if you talk about the straw man versus the real man. And in reality, this ideology promotes the majority of their scams by making things so incredibly confusing that you just begin to follow their directions, or you pay them for the service where they claim you can, get your secret accounts or whatever, because it's just too difficult to try to explain. And or to try to understand rather. And when you do follow everything they tell you to do and it doesn't go right, they simply tell you you didn't do it right. And it goes on like that until you finally give up. But the bottom line is that it's always your fault. So there is nothing real about the redemption theory. For those that choose to follow somebody, buy their package, buy their paperwork, pay them for the information, whatever it is you want to do, just know that this is one of those cases where if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And this definitely sounds too good to be true, and it definitely is. It is definitely something that does not occur. There are a lot of people that will tell you, oh, I can show you proof, and then they falsify proof and show it to you. But the bottom line is you just never are going to get anywhere with it because those accounts actually don't exist. Most of the gurus know they don't exist. Some of them actually believe they do, and they just have not been able to somehow tap into it yet. But the truth is, they don't. So, breaking this down a little bit more, and so that I don't make this actual video, 3 hours long, I'm going to give you guys an overview of where the ideology breaks down into in terms of believers. So we have the true believers, people who buy into this ideology, and people who in the group generally will have a very strong anti-government belief for one reason or another. They've either gotten into trouble and they feel that they weren't treated fairly, which is highly possible. I'm not saying that, these things are not true simply because mistakes are not made or there aren't actual individuals out there that do things incorrectly that are in authority positions, okay? But when someone turns anti-government, it's generally for a reason. And those reasons have a lot to do with finances, and they have a lot to do with education, and they also have a lot to do with the way that they see their life going and their children's lives going, and how powerful or not powerful they feel in being able to change that. When you feel insecure, you're more likely to follow conspiracy theories. You're more likely to fall into a group of individuals that are like-minded. And until you feel safe and secure again in your own setting, you could potentially fall victim to one of these ideologies, because life a lot of times just doesn't seem fair. But the laws are what they are, and if those laws need to be changed, then people have to get together and actually change them in the way that the Constitution set up for us to change them. You can't change them by acting out and being a lone wolf rebel, because this is a very loosely put together group. That's part of the issue with it, is that these people spread a lot of misinformation, but they don't get along well enough together to even be able to hold their ideology together as a group. So therefore, everybody's kind of their own lone wolf, if that makes any sense. So the true believers are ones that they believe the wild conspiracies about the government being controlled by, for example, Jews and secret treaties and the Illuminati and all of these things. that there's a shadow government, that the government, is just all completely a hateful thing, that we have no democracy in terms of being able to vote people in or out. It's all tyranny. It's all, I've heard all kinds of things. And a lot of people that I have found that are true believers really don't have a good grasp on what actual history is. And there's a lot of jailhouse lawyers out there, especially on social media, that will tell you things that aren't true and will cherry pick laws. So for true believers, it can be a very frustrating thing. And although you can be frustrated with the IRS, frustrated with the government, frustrated with all kinds of things, just know that there are ways to change those things, but they have to be done properly so that they stay changed. And that's a way for you to get involved with your community. But if you're going to lone wolf it and go blow up a building, because that's just an example, because you think that's going to change something, it isn't going to change the government. Okay, what it's going to do is it's going to affect a whole lot of innocent lives. And that's a lot of what's happening with these scams. And that's what I'm getting ready to go into next. So the next group within this ideology are the financially troubled. Sometimes people run into money trouble. They fall behind on their taxes, rack up tons of credit card debt, have medical bills that they can't possibly pay. And when they stumble across this ideology, it seems like a magic wand to them. They can simply say certain words in court or file certain paperwork in with the county and renounce the 14th Amendment, that they believe that they can instantly be free of the crushing debt that keeps them awake at night by filing a 1099 OID and getting back this huge refund, or by breaking into a secret account. And none of it is legal, and none of it is real at the end of it. There is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, folks. And I'm not going to continue to try to change people's minds. If you're already settled into this movement and you are a true believer, then go for it. Because I know from all of the research that's been done by myself and many other researchers, but for 30 years, people have been trying to deal with the redemption movement in 90 million different ways, and the truth is it always comes out empty. So go ahead, just know, do not believe people that tell you that you can do this without consequence. There are serious consequences for you doing these things. There's bond fraud. There is frivolous filings with the IRS that bring on $5,000 fines for every piece of paper that you file that's considered frivolous. There are, which would be like an accepted for value type of scenario. If you're printing up checks with Federal Reserve bank routing numbers on them and account numbers that match your Social Security number, that is bank fraud. If you use ACH online, you're not getting away from the bank fraud. That is still considered bank fraud, and it's also considered wire fraud and mail fraud if you're trying to get something from it. I'm telling you, folks, you need to pay attention to what the laws are, because if you're going to try to do these things because there's a guru sitting behind their computer making a video telling you that you can do this and you shouldn't be afraid of the government, or you shouldn't let them stop you from trying to do this, that shills are coming out and trying to tell you guys not to do it, that everybody is, that's warning you about it is some government agent or whatever set up on YouTube or Facebook in order to stop you guys. No. All you have to do is look up what mail fraud, wire fraud, and bank fraud are, because they all fall into those categories. And the bottom line is, you are under the jurisdiction of the United States if you are standing in the United States. So all of those laws apply to you. And unfortunately, you'll be dealing with one or the other if you do these things. Okay, so next we have the gurus. These particular people in this ideology sell instructional videos and books to the financially troubled. So we're dealing with all of the people that you find on YouTube that are selling packages to teach you how to do UCC1 financial statements, to get your secret account, who teach you how to do A4V or accepted for value presentments, who teach you how to go on to Amazon and order things that, and tell you to put in Federal Reserve routing numbers, and your account number is your Social Security number or what's on the back of your Social Security number, whatever. You're going to know that you're dealing with the same scenario because it's all based around these so-called secret accounts. Some people believe that they're at the Social Security Administration. Some people believe they're at the Federal Reserve Bank. Others believe they're at the main Treasury. And some people believe that they are sold on the stock market in birth certificate bonds that are monetized. They don't even actually have their story straight. So you could hear a number of varieties on this. Back when this actually first started, back in the 90s, they were talking about there being a separate account that was held for you in trust with your birth certificate attached to it for $630,000 that was sitting there, that was basically what would have been considered what you would make by working. I mean, that doesn't actually make any sense at all, because there's a good percentage of the population who doesn't work, and there's also another good percentage that are disabled. I mean, it just doesn't make any logical sense. I don't know anybody who would buy up birth certificates and trade them on the stock market when, that's a really bad, crappy risk. But regardless, so as far as the gurus are concerned, we're dealing with all kinds of social media for these people, all kinds of different stories for these people. The tactics that are used are intentionally complex and arcane as possible, as I explained. This plays well for both the conspiracy theorist who claims to know important secrets about the world and the people with money trouble, because it suggests that they need to pay the guru to help them understand these legal maneuvers. If you're, say, $100,000 in debt, then why would you not pay $1,000 for some DVDs that would help to explain why you're not a person, and help you to get into this secret stash of cash. And all you're going to have to do when you're done with all of this is just sign your name and put your thumbprint and some red ink on all of your bills, and everything will be magically paid for and taken care of. So, okay, that's the paperwork scenario and that's the financial scenario in terms of the redemption theory. But we have another paperwork scenario. I'm going to call it paperwork warfare. And that is where they tell you that you can derail a legal process. You can derail somebody who just simply disagrees with you by using what's called a lien. Now, this is highly illegal, and it's something that they've been doing for a long time now. So if you get mad because you were pulled over and you got a ticket and you think you were going 5 miles less an hour than what the cop says you were, and you get mad at the cop, then you can just go file a lien against the cop, according to these gurus. And these gurus don't mess around, man. They tell you you can file these liens for $1 million or more dollars. They claim that they've got these, this is going to attach to their specific birth certificate bond. There are groups out there that are telling people that they can file these liens against everyone that they disagree with. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let this kind of, just be out there so that people are a little bit more aware of what these groups are doing. But I am going to answer one final question. And that is, I've been asked this over and over again. What is it that they're after? What is their reason for purposely getting arrested? What is their reason for purposely trying to... we've all seen the videos where they purposely try to engage with the cops. They purposely try to get pulled over. And then they sit in their cars arguing with them until the cops get mad enough to bust out their windows and yank them out of the car, or even taser them maybe. 2 hopes. 1, lawsuits. And number 2, they like to post it on social media in the hopes that everybody will get angry enough at the government the way that they are, that maybe there will be an uprising, and they, in turn, can take over and overthrow the government. Well, I hope this helped explain a few things with regards to this ideology. I want to let you guys know that I am so grateful for all of the help that you provided to Penny this week. It's been a very, very long week for me, and I probably won't be posting anything over the weekend except for the third part of the Global Sovereign Citizen Handbook. But I want to thank everybody for your generosity. And as soon as the funds are deposited, I will be taking that information to the bank to get a Visa gift card for Penny and sending that off to her. She will be making a video with that in the video so that everybody can see it. And that will be sometime probably towards the end of next week. If you have questions or comments with regards to this video, please put them in the comment section and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And if those of you that are listening to this video that emailed me before wanted to speak privately, you can always, anybody can email me at virgotriad@protonmail.com. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks so much, you guys, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.